Good morning and welcome to Connecting America on the USA Today streaming channels on this Friday. I'm Jim Rosenfield, joined by Kieran Chetry here at the Sunrise Diner in Roselle Park, New Jersey, and Allison Camerata in her home quarters there. TGIF, guys, we made it to Friday.
That's right. We made it. Allison.
I forgot today was Friday. That is a reason to celebrate. We have a few reasons to celebrate on the show today. Peace is breaking out in the Middle East, and it's Friday. So that's a good way to start.
It is,
Absolutely.
definitely. Let's start with that peace in the Middle East. That's the big story this morning between Israel and Hamas. Reports out of Israel this morning say the ceasefire is now officially in effect. Israeli media is reporting that IDF soldiers have actually now pulled back in Gaza to some agreed upon lines. And word now that the U.S. is preparing to deploy up to 200 troops to monitor the Gaza ceasefire. Exactly where those troops will be stationed, that's not yet clear. But the Trump administration says they will stay on the Israeli side of the border with Gaza and not enter that war-ravaged Palestinian territory. Allison?
Well, the walls of Jerusalem's old city were lit by the Israeli and United States flags in celebration of this U.S. brokered deal between Israel and Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet voted early Friday morning in favor of this Gaza ceasefire deal that will see the remaining hostages freed. Guys, this is the best news of all, in exchange for some Palestinian security prisoners being freed. So there's a prisoner exchange and a halt to the fighting.
Yeah, this is a day that, especially the families, of course, of those who have been held hostage for nearly 2 years or more than 2 years now.
Yeah, just over.
20 or so thought to be alive. So we'll see. And they're also bringing the remains back of an additional about 28. And it's just been a long road. It's been a long road. And it actually is pretty remarkable that we're at this place now, given all that's gone on over the past 2 years.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting to read about the backstory here. So it sounds like President Trump tasked Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff with brokering this deal. And these guys are real estate deal makers, real estate moguls. So that's the world, the rough and tumble world of New York City. And what I heard Jared Kushner say was that what you do is you get to a yes. You start quickly with the yes, and then you work out the details later. And that's just a different way than regular diplomats do it. You know, they sometimes get bogged down in the details or really try to hammer out the details, and these guys did it kind of backwards. So, you know, in some people have said, we'll see, the devil is in the details, and we'll see if both sides do this. But it was just interesting to outsource this to real estate guys, and that they got it done in a way that other people hadn't been able to.
And with alacrity, with speed that people were not exactly expecting, including maybe it was going to take longer to expect that the hostages would be released. Now we're hearing it may happen as soon as Monday may happen Tuesday, while President Trump is in the Middle East. So we're going to be watching that very, very closely. You know, the president has been lobbying for the Nobel Peace Prize, and this is certainly moving him in that direction. But the question was, would he get it in this round? Well, breaking this morning, no, he won't. The Nobel Prize was awarded this morning. The recipient is not President Trump. The president and his supporters are saying he deserves the Peace Prize for this Middle East peace deal. But the Nobel Committee announced this morning they're awarding the prize to Maria Corina Machado, the leader of the Venezuelan opposition party. That's for her efforts promoting democracy in Venezuela. And we should point out the nominating process for all of this, for this prize, that ended back in January, right after the president took office. So not in this round, but still could happen.
Yeah, there's always next year. This was, I guess, you know, on the table for a while now, for several months. So I don't know if you can just turn around, pull the prize. There's no runner-up, you know.
Also, I mean, it would have been, but personally, I think it would have been premature to award President Trump the Peace Prize right now, because, again, we don't know if this is durable. The hostages haven't been released yet. This is extremely promising. Everyone in Gaza, everyone in Israel is very happy. The hostages' families are very happy, but it needs to take a little bit more root before I think we call it, you know, a massive success. But anyway, here's our question of the day. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, I was just going to say it was interesting to hear, you know, prior administrations, people weighing in from George George H.W. Bush
Mm-hmm.
and others, saying that this is one of the most difficult things that that any president has tried to do. And it's interesting about Trump's getting a lot of credit. He also was able to bring in countries that Hamas was willing to deal with, including Qatar as well as Saudi Arabia. That was a sticking point before. It was difficult to say which side or what countries are representing the people of Gaza in this situation, and that was able to happen. So hopefully this will be different.
Yeah, there's the big question of will Hamas actually disarm, which is part of the next phase of this peace deal, and also the difficulties of getting the bodies of the remaining hostages back because they are scattered reportedly in areas where Hamas does not have control. So you can imagine the logistics and difficulties of just that piece alone. Speaking of the hostage families, let's listen in to President Trump. He was actually on a phone call with some of the families, delivering the good news while those families were in Washington yesterday.
We trust you'll fulfill the mission until every hostage, every 48 of the hostages are home. Thank you so much. Blessed be the peacemakers.
God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America.
Thank you very much. You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
All of them.
A lot of joy, a lot of relief there. Let's take you to Israel, where David Sussman joins us now from Efrat. David, we've certainly been here before, but is this renewed optimism that this is actually going to lead to a lasting peace this time?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this wonderful Friday here in Israel in the middle of the holiday of Sukkot as we prepare for the Sabbath and with the wonderful news of the ceasefire and our hostages, hopefully, God willing, on Monday night, Tuesday morning, in the middle of the night. I'm not actually in Efrat. I'm in Jerusalem. You can see the old city walls of Jerusalem behind me, which were lit up in celebration last night, as everyone here on the streets, even with a little bit of, hey, let's just take a step back and wait till our hostages are home. You never know with Hamas. You never know what they're going to do. They could break the deal at the last minute before releasing the hostages. We hope that's not going to be the case. We are all celebrating this wonderful news, and we're really grateful that it was able to come together so beautifully.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, David, I'm wondering, with the elements of this deal that have yet to be worked out, you talk about that caution, that feeling that let's not celebrate prematurely. How hopeful are those where you are in Israel that Hamas will actually live up to its word at this point?
Well, we're very hopeful that the hostages are going to be brought home. We're very hopeful in these initial stages that everything's going to go smoothly. I think really the trepidation that most people have is whether or not Hamas is going to disarm, whether or not they're going to...
Go ahead, David.
To get out and allow peace to endure in Gaza for the citizens, for Israel, and for the entire Middle East. And I think what's really incredible is that when you look at the Hebrew calendar, right, everybody knows the massacre took place on October 7th. But on the Hebrew calendar, it was Simchat Torah. And the Hebrew calendar is not the same as the Gregorian calendar that most of us follow in the world. And Monday night, Tuesday morning, is Simchat Torah. And Mia Shrem, the hostage that was let out in the first or second after 53 or 55 days of captivity, she coined the term, "We shall dance again." And on that holiday of Simchat Torah, we dance with our Torah. We dance in the streets. We dance in the synagogues. And we're going to dance again on this Simchat Torah, knowing that our hostages are going to be released. It's a very happy time here right now.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful symbolism and symmetry there. And the dancing and celebration is wonderful. David, do you have a sense? I mean, we are reading news reports
I'm sorry,
this
I don't
morning
hear
a
anything
little
right
bit.
now.
Oh, sorry, David. Maybe we're having audio problems. Can you guys hear me?
We do, but David can't. So we'll move on because we want to check in with our foreign correspondent, Amy Kellogg, on all of this. She is joining us here on Connecting America. Amy, talk to us about how the rest of the world is feeling about this peace deal this morning. We know that ceasefire officially in effect. The Israeli parliament voted on that, and Amy's here to talk more about what the rest of the world reaction is. Amy?
Well, Germany has been lobbying this morning already for an international donors conference in conjunction or in coordination with Egypt to try to raise some money for the most urgent needs of the people of Gaza:
Emily.
infrastructure, water, food, medical supplies. Meanwhile, some other parts of the world had been planning conferences to try to push peace along, including Russia, which just called its planned conference off because now it seems the work is underway. I think, as we've been saying in the last few days, the optimism remains incredibly high, but measured, because we know that peace deals in the past have failed.
Hmm. And Amy, there's, scant information at the moment about what exactly it was that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff promised or did or said in order to make this happen. And one of the interesting rules in the United States is, because Jared Kushner is an unpaid advisor, he doesn't have the same transparency or disclosure rules that normal diplomats do. Do we have a sense of the backstory of what the tipping point was that got us to this peace deal?
Jared Kushner is, for those reasons, controversial, Allison, because he's family. There was always an allegation of nepotism when he was in the White House in Trump's first term. I think, though, with the passage of time, a lot of respect has built for him. Again, there is skepticism because he's a real estate guy and there are deals being cut in that region. So he stands to benefit financially from the development of peace in that region, and the Abraham Accords and stability taking hold. But he's also getting an awful lot of credit for being a very astute operator. He's worked hard to build relationships not only with Israelis and with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but also with the Gulf Arabs. One tipping point for this process to really get going, it's been said over the last few days, and I've heard it confirmed in the last 24 hours, was that strike in Qatar that failed to kill the Hamas negotiator, who is part of this process as we speak, a- and that really upset the Qataris, who are very important to President Trump. And he, as we know, forced Qatar to apologize to Israel. That really set a lot of the momentum in motion for a united front to make all of this happen. And also, Trump did not like to see Israel becoming so isolated. There had been that wave of recognitions of a Palestinian state, which was a further isolation of Israel, or at least it was interpreted to be that way. And Trump did not want to see Israel, an important ally of the United States, seen internationally increasingly as something of an outlaw state.
Right. So neither side is going to get exactly what they want, but President Trump seems to have shown both sides that he is willing to understand their point of view and perspective and demand mutual respect. One of the things, though, that we have some questions about is whether or not Hamas is actually going to be willing to disarm, and also what's happening ahead of the president's visit this weekend to Israel.
Hamas is not going to disarm fully. And there are discussions about what can be maintained in their arsenal, presumably in an ideal situation under Egyptian custodianship. They will, of course, have to give up heavy weaponry, but they will lobby hard to at least have some sort of access or ownership of smaller weapons, because they are worried about what happens going forward. They are very unpopular right now. And it is likely that if some of the members basically disarm but remain in Gaza, that they could come under attack. That will be a very thorny issue that is being kicked ahead to a further date as Israel withdraws to a new border with Gaza. They Israel still will be in this first stage occupying 53% of Gaza. So I think further withdrawal will be contingent, of course, on Hamas being defanged, if you will. And the people of Gaza will be pushing very hard with their Arab backers to get Israel as far out of Gaza as possible, Kieran.
And then there's the big question, Amy, of who rules in Gaza after all of these pieces are put in place.
It's a complicated situation. We've got this board of peace, which will be um, overseen by the CEO, President Trump, who did not win the Nobel Peace Prize, as we know, but he will be leading this board of peace with much support from Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who has done a lot of work in the region. But the composition of the actual Palestinian governing body will be much more complex. There are still something like 60,000 civil servants on the payroll in Gaza. And apparently, half of them are Hamas and half of them are from the Palestinian Authority, who are not actually doing anything because they are not part of the ruling structure, the Hamas um, body, but they are there to sort of keep Hamas from having too much influence with the Palestinian people. So then some of the most talented Palestinians are working abroad. What their legitimacy at home will be remains to be seen, but it's complex. It's believed that the competent people are out there. It's just a matter of tapping them and finding the team that's most widely palatable to the Palestinian people.
Amy, there's so much about this that's complex. As we've said, the devil's going to be in the details. One of the things that is very complicated is that I read something like 78% of Gaza has been damaged or destroyed. What
Yeah.
what what happens now? What happens after that? How does it become inhabitable again?
It is so heartbreaking to see those lunarscape images of Gaza. The other images that are quite arresting are the ones this morning of people returning home to their towns along this coastal path. Really, there you have it. It is said that the Gazans are incredibly resilient and they will rebuild very quickly and they will put together a house in no time if they get the materials. But of course, there's a lot of urban planning that should be done in order to make the strip a more inhabitable place
And
and
Amy,
with a higher standard of living.
we should point out, not to interrupt you, but this is a live picture. This is a live image as people are traveling north back to Gaza City. Just an arresting image right there, and speaks to this feeling of hope that it is safe to return to Gaza City, a place where they were forced to flee at the urging of the Israeli military, which launched that campaign of late to try to root out Hamas once and for all. So again, Amy, I didn't even mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to let our viewers know that these are live images coming out of the region. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jim. No, really, those images speak volumes about how desperate people are to get home. But to Allison's point, they don't have their homes. So I can imagine too. I mean, during all this time, there's been a lot of price gouging. People have had to pay crazy sums of money for tents. Um, so there's going to be, of course, some of that too, no doubt, going on because people will get close to their homes, but will need something to sleep under in the night. Um, Apparently, the price of food has come down already because there's great anticipation that this 170,000 tons of aid that's earmarked and ready to roll in should be getting there soon. But that needs to be supervised too, because people are so desperate and so hungry. We've seen scenes in the past where people have been killed or badly injured in the race to get their hands on food distribution supplies.
Amy Kellogg, thank you for joining us. I was listening to one account from a young girl who had lost her father and had to flee Gaza City, and she said, she may not have a place to go back to, but she can at least now visit her father's grave. So just
it really is amazing to see those live pictures and see just all of the people moving in, just how beautiful the natural coastline and everything there is, and just how war has just ravaged this entire area that has so much potential. So of course we'll continue to watch that throughout the morning. Meantime, back here at home, the East Coast bracing for a wild weekend, tropical winds and rain. Let's bring in AccuWeather meteorologist Alex De Silva. Hi, Alex.
How's it going, guys? Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a wild weekend indeed for portions of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here. Taking a look here at the radar here. Down here is Tropical Storm Jerry bringing rain to the Lesser Antilles. This is going to be going out to sea. No threat to the United States for that one. But here is the area that we're concerned about right now. Area of showers and thunderstorms starting to take shape off the southeast coast. Later today, we expect low pressure to form in that area and then slowly begin to creep up the coast. So this initial point that we have down here is Friday at 8 p.m. Then we expect the storm to come up the East Coast gradually into the weekend, and then maybe even stalling here off the Mid-Atlantic coast Sunday night into Monday, or moving very, very slow in that area. And so what that's going to do is it's going to create a prolonged northeast wind along a lot of these beaches here. And so I'm very concerned about a lot of major coastal flooding, anywhere from North Carolina all the way up through New Jersey. Can expect to see major coastal flooding, probably starting Sunday and then lasting through the day on Monday. This is going to be a long-term event, so I think coastal flooding is going to be the main impact from this storm, but we're also going to be dealing with a lot of strong winds, especially near the coastline. This is our area for 40 to 60 mile per hour winds extending everywhere from the Outer Banks all the way up through Boston. Can see wind gusts of 40 to 60 miles per hour. And then in terms of the rainfall, again, most of the heaviest rainfall will be confined to coastal areas. But again, you can see a pretty wide swath here, everywhere from the Outer Banks up through the Delmarva Peninsula and up to Long Island. Could see 2 to 4 inches of rain from this storm. But keep in mind, I do believe it's going to be the major coastal flooding that's going to be the biggest impact from this storm this weekend and into early next week.
All right, Alex De Silva, thank you. Connecting America is just getting started for you on this Friday. Up next, we have a reporter from USA Today to bring us up to speed on the latest with the government shutdown. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Connecting America. It's great to have you here on this TGIF. We're very happy to be celebrating the fact that it's the end of the week. And it's nice to see you, Allison, and you, Jim.
Thank you.
Great to be
It's
here.
good to be here with all of you. And we've got some other news we want to catch you up on. New York's Attorney General Letitia James now indicted for mortgage fraud. This is a case President Trump was urging prosecutors to bring after vowing retribution against his political enemies. James called the indictment a, quote, desperate weaponization of the justice system. You'll recall James brought a lawsuit against President Trump after his first term. She was claiming he built his business empire on lies about his wealth. It's been an ongoing battle. Trump was found liable, but the courts threw out a huge fine against him. James, one of those the president urged his attorney general, Pam Bondi, on social media to go after. Let's get going here, he was saying in essence. The other is former FBI Director James Comey, who's also been indicted, pleaded not guilty this week to obstruction charges, as well as lying to Congress. Allison?
Okay, it's day 10 of the government shutdown, and it appears not to be ending anytime soon, but the Senate is going to leave town until Tuesday, meaning the government shutdown will not be resolved this week. I mean, it's really, obviously it's all politics for, the lawmakers, but for regular Americans, they are going without pay right now, and people live paycheck to paycheck. And so the fact that they're leaving town is just, stunning.
Yeah, and some of them are going without pay and having to show up for work, as we know, including TSA agents, air traffic controllers,
Right.
The military. We want to dive into this a little bit. USA Today's Sudiksha Kochi is reporting on Congress and joins us now to look at where things stand this morning. Thanks for joining us. So walk us through, there have been efforts in the Senate to bring new votes. Why did the Senate reject the latest deal, Sudiksha?
Yeah, so essentially, senators need 60 votes in order to advance any sort of bill in the upper chamber. And so right now, Senate Republicans are really hoping that Democrats come forward and support their Republican crafted CR. So a CR is a continuing resolution. It's a bill that temporarily funds the government. And the House had actually passed a CR last month, and then right now they are out of session. So it's really up to the Senate to pass this bill to reopen the government. Right now, what's happening is that Democrats have put forward their own plan that includes some of the healthcare demands they've been asking for Republicans. They want to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which are set to expire at the end of December. And right now, Democrats are not willing to budge unless lawmakers are able to extend those subsidies. If those subsidies are not extended, a lot of Americans' health insurance premiums could go up. And so that's kind of the issue at the minds of Democrats. And so right now, Senate Republicans are trying to advance the House CR that was passed last month. And they have 2 Democrats and 1 independent on their side. And so they are looking to get 5 more Democrats to break rank and support the Republican crafted CR so that they are able to reopen the government. Right now, the Senate, I think nearly every day, has tried to vote on this House-backed CR, and it has not advanced through the Senate. Democrats have also put forward their own plan, which Senate Republicans have also struck down. So it's looking like Democrats and Republicans will have to sooner or later come to the table and negotiate on some sort of funding deal as the shutdown battle drags on.
And
Yes,
so, Sudiksha, is there any wiggle room on the Republican side about these healthcare subsidies? Are they willing to negotiate right now, or not until the CR is passed?
It seems that they are waiting until the CR is passed to have those discussions on the ACA subsidies. I will say that some senators, there have been bipartisan talks, obviously, outside of Capitol Hill. And I think I saw a report from Politico where senators all gathered and, they had Thai food together. And so I think that right now Republicans are trying to get a CR passed to reopen the government, and then they're willing to discuss the ACA subsidies. And I think that's what's on the mind of Thune, as well as House Speaker Mike Johnson. So I think that right now, what they're trying to do is just get a spending bill passed to reopen the government and then discuss ACA subsidies. But right now, Democrats really just want the subsidies to be extended and that to be included in the spending bill.
All right, Sudhi Shakochi joining us now to talk more about that. We really appreciate it, and stay tuned. I guess they're taking a long weekend, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you, Sudisha. Okay, let's talk now about this incredible story in New Jersey. So as you know, guys, we partner with Gannett's USA Today, and viewers can watch our program via USA Today's streaming channels. One of the bonuses of that partnership is access to great journalists. So joining us now in the diner with you guys is Frank Scandal. He's the news director of the Asbury Park Press, my childhood paper growing up in Monmouth County, New Jersey, Frank. This is a newspaper that's been covering the Jersey Shore area for nearly 150 years. So, Frank, thank you so much for being here. And we want to dive into one of your recent stories that really stood out to us. This is an investigation into the grading process for students in the Asbury Park school system. You found, stunningly, that district officials have been manipulating the system to basically inflate the grades of failing students and get a higher graduation rate. So tell us about this.
Yeah, well, that was thanks for the kudos, and I'm glad you've been a big fan of the press. The press has been very active in New Jersey. I joined them a year ago, so I've been in New Jersey half my career and been with Gannett twice. And this time I'm the news director, but we're focusing on investigations and deeper, looks at different things. So one of the things that struck us is there'd been a series of lawsuits coming about this district, and they were just one after another. I think there were 8 in 12 months.
From who? Who's bringing this?
These are administrators, principals, former superintendents, and sort of paying attention. You're looking for the diamond in the rough there. And then we started to look at similarities, and what it came up was is they were after the former superintendent for changing the way the grades were issued. And all that meant is that instead of failing they had a 49% graduation rate. Right. They changed the way it was done, and it went to 83% overnight, which is impossible.
And how were they doing this? There was a floor that they
called
established?
a 64 floor, which was first reported by Laura Walters, who does an New Jersey education report back 6 years ago. But we dug into it, and the superintendent created the system, as he called it, for equity reasons. And so you could not fail, basically. Like, you got a grade of 64 no matter what you did. And then this way the student could just, with 1 point can pass. And so that's what inflated the graduation rate. However, the test scores remained low. So right. Nothing changed in terms of the learning. And so all these lawsuits started picking at it. But then our reporters, Amanda Oglesby and Charles Day, dug in and did reporting for several months. And then we came up with a 3-part series on, well, how did this happen?
Yeah, I mean, because there are obviously there are state regulations. There are, certain benchmarks that have to be set that can't go district to district. And as I understand it from reading more about the article, there was just some very unconventional things like allowing babysitting,
the credit
to
retrieval
count.
system.
Yeah, allowing classes to happen.
Not unheard of, by the way.
Right.
This system in Westchester. One of our reporters, also USA Today at the Bergen Record, she discovered a same system where they were given credits for doing odd things, babysitting, volunteer work, et cetera. And so that helped bring kids who were not having passing grades. They would give them, so the district taxpayers would pay for these retrieval systems, and then the kids would get credit on top of that. So there was, again, this has not been, there's floor systems also in Atlantic City. It was Carteret, where Lamont Repillette, who is now the president of Kane University here, he started in there, and then his successor, Ms. Gray, she continued the process. They've changed it a little bit, so the floor is now lowered. I think it's either 50 or 55, which is other systems, which means the kid still gets something, but he still has to work harder to get a passing grade. So,
but also, Frank, I just want to drill down on what you just said. The principal, okay, who oversaw this, who spearheaded this, the superintendent who oversaw this, he was elevated. He was celebrated by officials everywhere because, oh my goodness, he's turned around Asbury Park school system. Kids are graduating now at, twice the rate. And so he got all of, these advancements of the system. Why didn't anybody before you guys think, How did he turn around the graduation rate overnight?
I can't answer that. I can only say that it was sort of out there. I mean, he sat in a legislative hearing by one of the Monmouth County legislators, Declan O'Scanlan, and that's where it first came out during the hearing that he created the 64 floor for Asbury. So it was out there, but I don't think a lot of things had materialized yet, including different lawsuits that sort of accused them of the district of retaliation for basically whistleblowing and say this system is not helping the kids any, even though it looks like we're doing much better. But again, when what our reporters did, Amanda and Charles did, is they showed, okay, so the graduation rate came up to 89%, but the test scores were still way below the mean in New Jersey.
I wanted to ask you, is there any evidence that doing this in some way helps the kids at all in terms of maybe trying harder or their self-esteem? Is there anybody who believes that there's some good that can come out of this?
Superintendent certainly did.
Other than the superintendent.
I'm sure there were some supporters, but from when we talked to the parents and the PTA or PTO, I'm not sure what, they said it was a harm to the kids because at the end of the day, the kids aren't learning as they hope to be. And so Asbury Park District is very interesting. One of the things that the reporters chronicled was that the exit of kids to charter schools and private schools was strong, right? So they're losing kids. There's not a big graduation class. It's not a big school anymore. So, the parents are the ones who have to decide what to do with their children.
We really appreciate that you are taking these deep dives into local issues because we know across the country, local news reporting is going away.
Yep.
And this is so important because now parents know what's going on in their school district. One example with this investigation.
Yeah, thank you. We talk about that all the time, that if there's no shortage of national, international news, as you've just demonstrated with Gaza, but who's watching the school district, who's watching City Hall? And that's, New Jersey, which is where I started my career, actually right here in Union County at the former Elizabeth Daily Journal, which was the second oldest continuously printed daily in America after the Hartford Courant. That went belly up in the 90s.
All right. Well, if you want to do a piece on a Monmouth County girl who made good, I can put you in touch.
We know somebody?
Yeah, I know somebody. All right.
Yeah, all right.
Frank
It's a good story.
Scandali with the Asbury Park Press.
you very
Thank you
much.
so much for being here this morning.
We'll be right back.
Good Friday morning to you. Welcome back to Connecting America. We're coming to you from the Sunrise Diner this morning in Roselle Park, New Jersey. And Allison is at her home quarters as well at an undisclosed
I'm going to have
location.
to race in there, Kieran, because I hear you guys are about to have some delicious food. I think you guys are going to have some very special food today. So I'm going to have to jump in the car and speed there.
You're in luck because that segment went away today for some
Oh,
other
thank
reasons.
goodness.
So,
Oh, thank goodness.
so
Okay,
we'll
never
make
mind.
sure you're
We'll
here.
let you know ahead
Cheers.
of time. All right?
Yeah.
And you can get in here.
Okay.
Well, some of the stories that we're talking about today, in addition to, of course, the Mideast peace deal and the budget concerns, there is another story that we're following for you, the Cancel Netflix campaign, and it's picking up some steam. More and more conservative parents are dropping the streaming service. They're not happy what they feel is offensive and inappropriate. There are a few of the shows featured that they believe basically pushes the trans ideology on children that are much too small to be concerned with anything having to do with sexuality. Let's bring in Bethany Mandel. She is the co-author of Stolen Youth and a homeschooling mother of 6, God bless you, based in Greater DC. Thanks for being with us this morning, Bethany.
Thanks for having me.
I understand it was more than just one show. There was a lot of attention given to some of the comments as well that one of the directors of a show made in the aftermath of the killing of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what sparked it seems. So the Twitter account Libs of TikTok, who just follows, the craziness that happens on TikTok, she noticed one of the creators called Charlie Kirk a random Nazi in the wake of his assassination. I'm an Orthodox Jew. Charlie Kirk was not a random Nazi. And so she started unearthing clips that a lot of us had already seen, mostly from 20 and 2021, that all had sort of the critical gender theory subtext in a lot of those clips that were made for children. They were animated clips. And so she decided to start a viral campaign that really caught steam, so much so that Elon Musk started, telling his followers in the tens of millions to cancel Netflix. And the stock price took a hit as a result. It looks like it recovered this week, but last week it was down over 5%. Or almost 5%.
So Bethany, just explain this to us. So there was the Charlie Kirk, there was outrage over the comments about Charlie Kirk and people were canceling. But then there was also, explain the transgender characters that were offensive. How many and what programs?
Yeah, so there was a non-binary bison in one show. There was a on Strawberry Shortcake. There was a cross-dressing boy. There was another show called Camp Cretaceous where 2 girls were kissing. And so, sort of coupled all together, all of these data points, a lot of parents, myself included, I mean, there's also problematic programming that is just purely problematic from a sexual perspective, made for preteens. The Babysitters Club was awful. I would urge parents not to let their kids watch that modern reiteration either. And so parents, a lot of them were unaware that there was a lot of this content that is made for kids on Netflix. And it sparked, the knowledge of the fact that you can't just plop your kids in front of Netflix and assume that everything's going to be okay, the way that we were when we were kids.
It's one of these shows I know is a couple of years old and was in fact canceled, right? But
Yeah.
You're saying there are other shows and other depictions that continue on. If you pull up the Netflix app, the parents might not be aware that that's still there.
Yeah, so they're still there. They were mostly made in 2021 and 2020, 2021. But the campaign sort of took steam because one of the creators, again, called Charlie Kirk a random Nazi. And so Libs of TikTok started unearthing all of the clips, and taken all together, it's a trouble sign.
What is Netflix saying, if anything? Have you heard? Because I was looking
haven't
around
seen
and I've not seen any response from them officially.
I haven't seen anything. I mean, they have folks who this is their mission at Netflix. They have a DEI chairperson who is conducting DEI trainings with crew. This is what they want. So for them to make a statement, what are they going to say? So silence does make the most sense for them from a PR perspective. But this is the intention. It's the goal here.
Is the person you're talking
programming?
Is the person you're talking about Wade Davis? He's a vice president of inclusion strategy. And as you mentioned, this was in 2021, for example. The company talked about sending all of its vice presidents through a, quote, privilege workshop that denigrated executives who either were white or non-transgender.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the training that they're partaking in over at Netflix.
And you're saying it's still happening. That was Kieran was saying that was 2029. You're saying that's still happening.
I'm not sure.
So is this different, Bethany, than any other network? In other words, in terms of the programming, the offensive or provocative programming that you don't think is appropriate for kids, do you feel the same way about what's happening at Apple and their programming, or Prime, or any of the other streaming platforms?
So I haven't seen anything like this at the other streaming platforms. Very few platforms make content that's specifically geared towards children. So I mean, there's PBS, and I haven't seen much problems at PBS. Netflix is pretty unique because they have the juggernaut. They're doing content creation, and so I haven't seen other platforms really doing this. Disney Plus has gotten in some trouble here and there, but nothing on this scale. Nothing that, there's non-binary characters in a children's cartoon, or children kissing in a children's cartoon. It doesn't matter what their sexual identity is. This seems pretty unique and pretty blazing.
Are there parental controls you can put on Netflix? I mean, obviously it's a matter of awareness. Some parents, think it's a great thing. They pull up these programs and aren't aware. But if you're concerned at all, can you just block it for your kids to be able to pull it up?
No, I mean, this is content that they created for kids. And this is a lot of the frustration. I'm glad you asked that, because this is a lot of the frustration for conservative parents. We're not asking, it's the same with stuff in the schools. We're not asking for this content not to exist. We just like to be given the heads up. And the insidious nature of this, that it is slipped into content that does look innocuous and is made for children, that's the frustrating part, because it feels like they're trying to trick us. They're trying to pull one over on us and indoctrinate our children behind our backs. And that sneakiness is really what is infuriating about it.
You say that you're the mother of 6, where you homeschool your kids. What are you hoping to basically impart on your children in terms of conversations that are going to come up at maybe a more age appropriate time? But how are you hoping that, your impact of homeschooling and trying to avoid content like this will have on the kids moving down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think that parents should be able to determine when and how they have these conversations without a major media company having it for them, making that decision for them, or schools making it for them. It's funny, one of the last segments that you had was, that expose about Asbury Park. That's also a lot of why I homeschool, because the school system is just not very good, and they're spending very valuable time on critical gender theory instead of just reading and math. And the end result is what you see, that they have to fudge the numbers so that kids are able to graduate on time. All of this has an impact on children's development. And so the reason that I homeschool is because I want to be able to have control, to be able to focus on math, to be able to focus on literature and language and all of those things that schools used to be focused on, and children's entertainment used to be focused on. I mean, I grew up on Sesame Street, where we had the letter of the day. Sesame Street, thank God, still does have that. But if we scroll over to Netflix for children's programming, kids are making out and have non-binary characters. That's wild to me.
Bethany, before you go, just quickly, 6 children, you're homeschooling them. Can you give us the age ranges and how you teach them at these different grade levels by yourself at home?
Yeah. So shout out to my husband, who's with our kids right now.
Okay.
My oldest is almost 12. Her birthday is in 3 days, and my youngest is 3. But I've taught in a classroom, actually. I had 25 kids. And in a regular classroom, you have a wide range of abilities. I had kids who were reading. I was teaching 5th grade. I had kids who were reading on an 8th grade level, and a couple kids who were reading on a 1st or a 2nd grade level. So you always have that spread, no matter if you're in a classroom in your home. But my ratio is much better than it was in a classroom. And, sometimes we group them together for a history or read alouds, and sometimes they work independently, but it's a lot of the same classroom management that I had in a classroom. But again, it's easier because there's only 6 of them and they are my children. So I can yell at them much more than I could in the classroom.
You're not worried about whether they like their teacher, in other words.
Well, more power to you. Bethany Manziel, the Mom Morris Substack and podcast. We appreciate you coming in with your perspective this morning.
I was wondering why it was so quiet at her house, where all the kids were. I'm glad she explained that her husband also takes up the duties there. All right, up next, we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to show you how to reduce your anxiety in a natural and holistic way. Doesn't involve caffeine, guys. Put the coffee down.
I was just gonna say.
Okay.
Connecting America. We'll be right back.
Water okay?
Well, we're living in stressful times, guys. And
Really?
I just wanted to let you know that lack of sleep and a lot of caffeine, none of that helps.
No.
None of it.
We
So
try, though.
we're a little behind the 8 ball this morning, but we're going to bring in a professional, yoga coach Gwen Lawrence, to show us how to use gentle yoga to relieve anxiety. Good morning, Gwen.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
So walk us through this. When our minds are racing and we're here turning to caffeine, to get going. What's the best course of action to try to just de-stress?
Well, the whole idea is to incorporate some restorative yoga poses. And the main idea being stillness in the mind will come after stillness in the body. So instead of racing around, we're just going to slow down for a moment. So I just picked out 3 or 4 poses for you. You may need pillows or blocks or some kind of support for these, but should we get started?
Yes, go.
Yeah,
for it.
dive in, Gwen. So this is when your mind is racing, you want to do some of these poses. Yeah, so start us at the beginning.
Right. So, I mean, I know it's hard at work sometimes, but maybe if you get a break or as soon as you go home, you can institute some of these into your practice. So we're going to start with supported bridge. So you could take 2 blocks, pillows, whatever you have underneath the hips, and chin is to your chest. This is a very restorative pose, brings a lot of blood and oxygen to the brain, opens the chest so you can take deeper breaths, and also taps into that thyroid a little, which regulates your mood and metabolism. And from here, it'll be easy to just move on to waterfall. So the name alone makes you feel a little calmer, right? And this is legs straight up. You could do this against a wall, or you could put a support under your hips. This is great for circulation, lymph drainage, and an overall soothing regen pose. You stay here for about 1 minute, all of them 1-2 minutes, depending on your time availability. This one's a great one. I'll just stay here all day.
Back with the
And
block there
then,
underneath you.
yeah, you could go here, but then that's a little bit more effortful, right? So when you have your hips higher than your head, it's a little easier to do, especially if you
Okay.
have tight hamstrings. And we're going to move into one that people shy away from because it is a little difficult, but with time and practice, it gets better. And that's seated forward bend. It's a very introspective pose. Your eyes are closed, your view is blocked, so you have less distraction, and it gives you some time to open up sciatic nerve and your whole nervous system. And whether it looks like this, which a lot of us look like, or it looks like that, it is the same. So you just take some nice deep breaths with eyes closed.
Gwen, if I
Awesome.
can't do that, is what part of my body is really too tight?
Your posterior body, probably hamstrings, hips. Does that make sense? Does that
Yeah.
seem right? And
Yeah.
I think everybody has that, which is why we need to do it even more to just sideline other injuries down the line. And I think you're all looking forward to and all expecting to see the kingpin of relaxation, and that is child's pose, right? Let's just come down,
I like
release,
that one.
relax, right?
I
Great
love a
one.
good child's pose. It's so good. So you don't do your hands in front during child's pose. You let
You,
them rest behind you.
That's a great point. Absolutely. If you're feeling tight in the shoulders, having trouble breathing, you want to go ahead and reach if you have shoulder issues and doesn't allow you, just draping them along for just that full expression of child's pose, they call it.
Gwen, we didn't do the poses with you, but just watching makes us feel a little bit more relaxed.
Oh,
Absolutely.
all right.
We'll
That
try
one-
them later. Thanks, Gwen Lawrence. We appreciate it. If you want to connect with us, by the way, you can download the best of Connecting America each day, wherever you get your podcast. Just type Connecting America into the search bar. You can follow us on social media. We are all over it, as you can see there, as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and much more. We'll be right back at the top of the hour as the diner starts to fill up, and we're going to talk with some folks here.
The views expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of USA Today or its affiliates.
Good morning and welcome back to Connecting America on the USA Today streaming channels on this Friday morning. I'm Jim Rosenfield, joined by Kieran Chetry here at the Sunrise Diner in Rosa Park, New Jersey. There's Allison Camerata in her global home quarters, clutching her coffee. You know, it's cold here, Allison.
It's cold here too. It is officially autumn. It's not there's no more Indian summer. I opened the door today and got that cold blast.
Oh yeah.
It's happening. Yeah.
It is. Want to talk about what's going on in the Middle East. This is obviously one of our top stories this morning. And our next guest knows the region very well, also knows just what it feels like to be held against your will. He's Sam Goodwin. He's the only American civilian to be released from captivity by the Assad regime back in 2019. He's also the author of Saving Sam, the true story of an American's disappearance in Syria and his family's extraordinary fight to bring him home. Sam, thanks for joining us once again here on Connecting America.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me back on the show.
We appreciate it. Can you bring our viewers up to speed on your specific story, what happened to you in Syria?
Sure. So from 2010 to 2020, I'm in those 10 years, of much of which I spent living and working overseas. I was in Singapore for 6 years, in Dubai for a year. I traveled to every country in the world, and like any worthwhile venture or endeavor in life, it wasn't without its challenges. And perhaps most notably in 2019, as I write about in my book, I was taken hostage in Syria and held in some pretty uncomfortable situations. But thank God, thanks to a long list of people who worked tirelessly, and the situation ended peacefully. And today, I put the book out to kind of share the story and also the lessons and the messages around it in an attempt to help others.
Sam, talk to us about what the road back for the hostages. If in fact these 20 hostages who are believed to be alive, Israelis, are released on Monday, as we all pray they are, what do these next weeks and months look like for them?
Yeah, so that's right. It's looking like there are 20 who are, thank God, alive. The deal also includes bringing home the remains of others, which Hamas is saying could be tough, given some of them could be buried under rubble and so forth. But in the wake of this, it's a range of emotions. So it's disorienting. There's incredible excitement. There's confusion. They're bombarded with a lot of information. I mean, these people, they've been held for 2 years in literally a hole. And think about everything that's happened in, for example, in the past 2 years. I mean, the way that AI has evolved. 2 years ago, it was just this curiosity, and now it's embedded in everything we do. I mean, they wouldn't know about President Trump's assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, or the Paris Olympics last year. These are just examples of things that they'll need to get up to speed on. And so it's overwhelming. I mean, for me, it's 6 years later, and I'm still saying thank you to people. I'm still learning about people who talked to a friend or made a phone call or said a prayer, whatever it might be. And it's 6 years later, and I'm still doing that. And so it's overwhelming, particularly in those first few days and weeks.
That's absolutely understandable. I mean, I can just imagine you probably feel forgotten by, the rest of society. Like the world has moved on. 2 years have happened since you've been there. How do they begin to reintegrate into society? And also, what type of support are they going to need long term?
3 pieces of advice that I would give. One is if I was speaking directly to them, I would say be incredibly intentional about the people that you surround yourself with, especially in those first few days and weeks. These can be close family, it can be close friends. These can be doctors or medical professionals. It could be people from the religious community. Whoever those people are, be intentional about that, because having that support system is so important for reintegration. The second thing that I would say is be careful with the food that you eat. When I came home 3 days later, I ended up in the emergency room. And when I came home, I went a little bit crazy with the food. It was like double cheeseburgers and Chipotle and ice cream and things like that. And my body, my stomach had actually adapted to this very simple, basic, low calorie captivity diet. And I ended up having to go to the hospital and get that figured out. So my advice would be to ease back into the food. And then the third piece of advice that I would give is for hostages, particularly in a situation like this where it's very public, everybody in the world knows that they're being released. It's a very public deal. They're going to have a lot of media opportunities, and my advice is to make sure that that you be comfortable with this and don't let anybody push you around. I mean, for example, some hostages come home and they put their whole experience in a box and we never hear from them again. Others come home and the next Sunday they're on 60 Minutes and everything in between. I mean, for me, I waited 18 months before finally doing stories with the Wall Street Journal and NPR. So there's a range of different ways to handle that. But I would say don't let any media or press make you feel uncomfortable. Make sure that you're working with journalists and reporters who you feel are going to respect and understand the sensitivity of the story, and you're in the driver's seat when it comes to the press.
Sam Goodwin, we appreciate you being here this morning and sharing with us what you went through and how you've recovered from your experience to the extent you've been able to, and now an author. We appreciate you joining us on Connecting America and wish you the best.
My pleasure. Thanks
Sam.
for helping to spread the word, and congratulations on all of your success.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Wow, that was incredible, guys. I wouldn't have thought of some of those things like reintegrating slowly into the food. That makes total sense, but I would never have thought of that.
It sure does.
He's a fascinating guy. Yeah. All right, so let's take a live look right now at Gaza. What's happening there at this hour? This is an incredible image. I mean, people just this massive humanity streaming back into Gaza to see, I assume, if their homes exist and what they need to do to rebuild. Our next guest lived in Gaza during the last Intifada, and she has family there now. Palestinian activist Najla Kass joins us now at the diner. Najla, great to see you again. Tell us what these past days since the announcement of the deal has been like for your family there in Gaza.
Thank you for having me again. Feeling of surreal, a lot of emotions, but also at the same time, it's a new chapter for us Palestinians. It's a new chapter for my family, a chapter of finding out who's alive, who has been martyred by Israel, finding out if our home is still up, finding out who and what is next, and how to rebuild because of what the destruction Israel has caused to the Palestinians.
I was going to ask you, you're saying you're trying to figure this out. Have you had no contact at all with some family members that were in Gaza?
I've been grateful that I did have, and I do still to this moment have contacts with my family, but it's other Palestinians that don't know that some family members are in the south, others are in the north. Not everyone has evacuated the north. So they don't know. It's time to find out who is alive and who is not. Not everyone has the opportunity to be able to communicate with their families.
So much of this is a matter of trust. You know, can Israel trust that Hamas will disarm, will not try to attack once again? Can Palestinians trust that Israel will not continue to bombard areas in Gaza? How do you feel about the need for trust on both sides in this, Najla?
I mean, once it was aired that there has been an agreement in the ceasefire, they were still bombing. I was on the phone with my family and in Gaza. So it's a matter of, will Israel keep their word and not continue bombing and killing the Palestinians? That's the real question.
Well, both sides. I mean, both sides. This is a very fragile piece, as we know, because for the past decades, something breaks it. So I would say that both people are holding their breath for both sides, holding up their end of the argument. But Najla, I know that you were saying the past few days have been surreal. What have the past 2 years been like for your family in Gaza? Have they all been dislocated? Were they able to stay in the towns where they live, or what?
The past 2 years, and also for the past 70 plus years. It's not starting just within these 2 years. We've always been attacked. Our families have been always displaced, moved around, and not being able to live the life that they deserve due to the attacks on Israel, on Palestine from Israel.
What is the what is the hope for a new government going to look like?
The hope to let the Palestinians live freely, to live the life that any human being should live, to be able to get their education for their children, to be able to go into to work, to be able to live as a family, to be able to move on as human beings, like everybody else, like every human being should.
Who do you see, if anybody, Najla, emerging as the new leader there?
In regarding that, I would not be able to answer that for you. I do not go into politics. I'm not. I don't. My fear is for my family. My fear is for the Palestinian people. My fear is, what's to come next. Yes, that does weigh on who is the new leader.
But you talk about fear, but do you also have more hope this morning?
I hope. I do have more hope. I do, for the betterment for the Palestinian people to live and to be able um, to be treated like humans.
In terms of the rebuilding process, we saw that so much of the area has been reduced to rubble. Some estimates have it at 75% or higher of homes destroyed, of infrastructure destroyed. How long do you think it's going to take before people can start to come in, rebuild, and actually put together a life there?
The question is, will Israel let the Palestinians rebuild?
Do you believe they will?
They have a motive where it's we will let you build, and then we will shut you down and break you. It's a habit.
So it doesn't sound like you have trust that this is going to be different.
I'm hoping I am wrong this time. I really do.
We've heard from other guests just about the resiliency of the Palestinian people, because you've had to be over these decades, and that generally we were hearing from Amy Kellogg, our international correspondent, that Palestinians can rebuild rather quickly. You sort of unfortunately know how to do this, but when you see that stream of humanity, Najla, pouring back in to Gaza this morning, I mean, those are live pictures that we're showing there along the beach. What will that look like? I mean, what kind of help will they need? What do you think? How do you think the U.S. will be involved in rebuilding all of this?
I mean, looking at the street right here, I've drove down that street once in my lifetime back in 1980, 88 actually, when I was given the permission from a bulldozer from Commander-in-Chief to be able to go from the bridge to Shijaiya, to run into my mother's arms, because during the Intifada there was no one allowed out of their home unless they were given permission. So I could imagine how they feel going to their home as I was going to my mom's home to be in her arms after not seeing her for so long. I wish them the best of what they're about to see. I hope that they find what they're looking for. It's a moment of relief, but at the same time, fear, because they don't know what they're going to be expecting. For the past 2 years, they've been only listening and hearing from other family members and neighbors of what is left of their home, of their neighbors. So I'm grateful, and I'm hoping that this is a good step for them.
Najla Kos, thank you for being here at the diner here on Connecting America, and hopefully we can, have updates from you as to what your family is doing and what they are finding as this process hopefully does move forward to a lasting peace.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Well, after the break, we're going to be talking Taylor Swift yet again. Swifties are going to love this. We're going to show you where you can see some never before seen footage of Taylor's newest press tour. Allison, you can't wait. I can tell.
I'm going to the TV right now.
All right.
If you'll excuse me.
You stay there.
We'll be right now.
Welcome back to Connecting America. For anyone who didn't get enough Taylor Swift on The Tonight Show the other night, Jimmy Fallon is now airing a special episode that's happening tonight. And there's even more of the unseen parts of his interview that he did Monday with Taylor. The special is called Taylor Swift Extended Cut. I mean, wouldn't you milk it if you had her on?
Absolutely.
The extended cut, 1 extra minute. I'm kidding. But it reveals more of the stuff that they didn't air earlier in the week. The Tonight Show already broke format Monday by bringing her on much earlier than most guests appear. And now they're breaking format again with a rare new Friday night episode. And it's just another chapter in the life of a showgirl.
Yeah.
I got to admit, I mean, I am intrigued. I want to say like, oh, haven't we had enough? No. I would like to see the outtakes.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's brilliant on both parts, right? It helps, Jimmy Fallon show. Let's, milk this for all it's worth. And obviously it helps her publicize the new album, and as if she needs more publicity.
That's amazing.
Yeah. All right. We're in the celebrity world right now, and Taylor, we know, is engaged to be married, so that's great news. But so often in Hollywood, things just don't always work out.
Yeah,
right?
they don't, and they don't work out in real life too. Sometimes,
Yeah.
when two people divorce, it's challenging to say the least. The most famous right now that we're talking about is Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, who are splitting after 19 years of marriage. Each of them in their late 50s, and our next, in their late 50s is Nicole. Mid, I don't think
Let's
late.
check that.
Okay, all right, late 50s. There you go, 58 and 57. They look great.
Look fantastic.
Okay. Our next guest, by the way, says that they're the latest example, though, of a trend called gray divorce, and with those numbers increasing dramatically over the past several decades. Joining us now is asset protection attorney Anne-Margaret Carrozza. 58 years old. All right, There we go. So this gray divorce, thank you for joining us, by the way, to talk about this. This is, not the same of when you have small children, or maybe you don't have any children at all. There's no custody battles, but there are still a lot of considerations if you're choosing to dissolve your marriage later in life.
Definitely. And I think part of the driving factor for what we're calling gray divorce is the fact that we're living longer. So people who are 60, 65, 70 are thinking about potentially several more decades of active and healthy life. So there is a pivot point. What should I do to make myself happy?
Allison, you got any questions along these lines?
Yeah, I do. So I have a lot of questions about this. So, on some level, it's unfortunate anytime you see a marriage dissolve, but as you frame it, and Margaret, like there are things that people want happiness for the last remaining 2 decades of their lives. So how does the whole calculation differ for 50 and 60-year-olds versus 30 and 40s? What's the difference?
So I think it is super important when we have a later in life divorce to keep costs down, to keep legal fees down, because we have fewer working years left to recover from a financially devastating breakup. So that's one of the things that we want to consider.
I also, reading a little bit about this before you came on, that a lot of the sticking points, apparently women do really like way less better, I guess, in these situations. Maybe a little portion of the pension of their husband, but they have maybe less working years if they stayed home to raise kids and they don't have their own career. And it seems like it's a lot harder because they're also not getting child support.
It really is. And I think this begs the question, should we think about getting a prenup on the front end? We're also seeing a lot of later in life marriages, right? The Golden Bachelor is in full swing. And I think it is incredibly important that we do a prenup to ensure financial security in the event of a split for both parties.
So maybe that ship didn't sail with the first marriage, but think about it for the second marriage, especially.
100%, because we want both parties to have maximum security.
Yeah, it's a bummer. The Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban thing is a bummer, just culturally speaking, because they did seem like a couple. They had left Hollywood. I think they might have been living in Nashville.
They
They
were,
seemed
yeah.
like a couple who had kind of figured it out, and they had two daughters together. And I saw them once at a restaurant. I just happened to be sitting next to them, and I was, of course, spying on them. And they seemed really connected, and they were talking close to each other. And it is just a bummer that they've grown apart or whatever has happened after 20 years. Sometimes
Well,
that's
it's
so
hard when you start
surprising.
dating your guitarist on the side. You know, I mean, that can also lead into some trouble, allegedly.
Oh, you've been
I,
doing a little
I
deep
like that.
dive into this.
I like that Karen's just spreading that news, but then she adds the allegedly.
This is what
Hillary?
happened. This is why this sparked my attention. Apparently, there was a song, and he wrote lyrics for Nicole Kidman. Keith Urban did, and then he changed up those lyrics and actually said the name of his guitar player. And I don't know. There's that.
That's a
and there's
giveaway.
there's that, and there's a few other things. But apparently, they actually haven't been living together. This is all, this is all in the papers, okay? All right.
How difficult is it when you're dealing with, being in the spotlight, you're big celebrities, how difficult it is? You say, try to not drive up the costs, but there may be one party in the marriage who just is, intransigent. They're digging in their heels and they don't want to give in to whatever might be equitable.
Yeah, so I think we need to have an agreement between the parties, a non-disparagement agreement. We're not going to talk trash about each other, especially when we're dealing with a high-profile couple whose livelihood depends in part upon their reputations. But I think a critical factor that I'm not hearing people talk about is once a split is announced, it could take a year and a half for a divorce to be finalized.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that we are updating our advance directives. Do I want my soon-to-be ex-husband
good point.
Being able to make life and death decisions
Like if
for
you're
me
hospitalized
in a hospital? We want to
unexpectedly.
update that healthcare proxy. We want to update the power of attorney so that our ex does not have access to our finances and life and death decision making.
That's such a good point that I think people wouldn't have thought about. I mean, think about the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie divorce. That dragged on and on and on for years. So what do you think the prenup with Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban would look like?
Well, they reportedly had done a prenup prior to the marriage, and there are reports that there was a substance abuse clause within the prenup, that a financial split would be predicated in part on whether or not there were relapses with Keith Urban's public recovery. So that's one of the things. But I think all of us should consider a non-disparagement clause, whether we're high profile or, Joe Smith living a relatively small profile life. We want to make sure that we are not trashing each other on social media.
I don't think we haven't seen that happening, have we, Karen?
No.
You've been deep diving into this case.
No.
We have not seen them talking trash about each other,
No,
right?
they haven't been.
Okay.
They haven't been.
Just
But I
wanted to check.
understand. I understand what you're saying. You
Yeah.
want to keep your reputation intact, and if you do have kids, I mean, it doesn't matter how old they are. They don't want mom and dad ripping on each other.
100%.
Even if they can no longer stay married and live harmoniously. All right. Well, you brought up a lot of good points this morning. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us, Aunt Margaret.
All right, coming up after the break, we're going to talk some football with USA Today's NFL guru. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Thanks so much. You did great. You guys are lucky that I'm here at Connecting America today because I had a
For so many
rough.
reasons. Why? Why?
Well,
What's your
I had a
reason?
double butt kicking this weekend when it comes to my sports teams. First of all, I had to sit at
Uh-oh.
Yankee Stadium
Oh no,
and
yeah.
watch them not be able to hit against the dreaded Toronto Blue Jays.
And how about your Eagles?
And they really, really, I mean, to lose to the Giants is just actually embarrassing. Sorry.
Oh,
You don't have to
sorry
apologize.
about that,
I think
Karen.
a lot of Eagles fans feel that way.
Yeah, well, they did. They lost. The Giants actually. They have some new life and energy with Jackson Dart, Cam
Yeah.
Scattaboo
He was
ripping his
bringing it.
shirt off. I mean, 34-17. Joining us now to discuss this game and a couple of others. Tyler Dragon covers the NFL and track and field for USA Today. I mean, I thought everybody was crazy when they picked the Giants to win, and I guess the sadness continues in our household.
Well, I was one of those people who picked the Eagles to win. I was expecting the Eagles to fly high and roll, but the Giants certainly surprised me in the NFL world. And you're right, Cam Scattaboo and Jackson Dart just inject life into that whole team. The Giants have always had a good defensive line. They invested a lot of resources there, but yesterday, it was all three phases, offense, defense, and special teams, really dominated the game against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was really surprising to see they had over 170 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns against the Philadelphia Eagles. You really don't see that happen against the Eagles team. The Eagles could not get anything going on offense. Jalen Hurts and company looked out of sorts. They couldn't run the football at all. And yeah, Jackson Dart and Cam Scattaboo kind of just injected life into that whole team. And you can see it on all three phases.
Dart really showing how nimble he is, how he can adjust and make things happen. One of those touchdowns by him, right?
Yeah. Well, 1 touchdown by him, 3 by Cam Scattaboo. It was just a really impressive performance. 172 yards. Jackson Dart had over 50 rushing yards, and Cam Scattaboo had 98. So they really beat up the Eagles on offense, just running the football. Jackson Dart's scrambling ability. That's kind of an aspect of his game that was kind of unknown, especially coming to the NFL. But he's a pretty mobile quarterback, and he's been utilizing his legs, and it looked good last night for sure.
Well, I'm
Tyler,
happy.
tell us about the Kansas City Chiefs. I hate to break away from Kieran's favorite, but my kids are huge Chiefs fans.
Yeah, so they have a huge game against the Detroit Lions this weekend. The Chiefs are 2-3. This is the second worst start of Mahomes' career. So they really have to get back on track because their schedule does not get any easier. And really what's holding them back is they've had 42 penalties. Only 3 teams have more penalties than the Chiefs entering week 6. So they have to get it together. And their running offense is also out of sorts. Patrick Mahomes leads the team in rushing yards, and they have the 30th run block win rate in the NFL. So they have to get that side together. Monday night, if you saw, the Jacksonville Jaguars just really had a control of that game in Jacksonville. And the Chiefs, they don't look like the team that has been to the Super Bowls the past years. They look like a team that's tired. They look like a team that can't get any explosive plays without Rashee Rice, who's currently suspended right now. And their defense can't really stop anybody.
Oh, well, let's look ahead to the Monday night matchup: Chicago Bears versus the Washington Commanders. Now, the Bears are 2-2. The Commanders are 3-2. What are you looking at in that game?
Yeah, well, this is one of the most exciting games from last season. Caleb Williams and the Bears lost on a Hail Mary by Jaden Daniels last year. It was 52 yards, last play of the game. And these are the number 1 and number 2 picks of the 2024 draft. So they have kind of a friendly rivalry. But when these two teams get together, especially from that last game, fireworks go off because it's really exciting plays, especially from those 2 quarterbacks. And the Commanders, I was at that game last week. They had a huge win. Jaden Daniels actually came back from 2 games from a knee injury. And when he's on the football field, the Commanders are as good as any team in the NFC. So I'm really looking forward to this game Monday night in the bright lights in the nation's capital. Caleb Williams, the quarterback, is actually from Washington, D.C., so he's going to be motivated for this game. So I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, Tyler Dragon from USA Today, thanks for joining us on this Friday morning. We appreciate it. And we'll be right back. It's happened again. Gold has hit record highs lately. Here's the interesting part. Almost every time we see political unrest, protests, changes in economic policy, Wall Street panics, the dollar fluctuates, and our retirement accounts take a hit. Gold, however, stays rock solid. Joining us now is Shannon Davis, CEO of American Alternative Assets, to break down what's going on. Shannon, thanks for being here. So we've seen gold hit record high after record high this year. Why is that happening now?
It's not random noise. It's because we're starting to see a lot of stress in our economic system, our global system. Jobs are disappearing. Last time we saw jobs disappear at this rate was our last downturn, 2008. I'm sure everybody remembers that. Tech industries, retail industries, service sectors, they're all cutting jobs. Political tension globally is shifting. Powers are shifting, and that's due to just the other countries not having confidence in our financial system. In times like this, trust erodes, confidence in banks and institutions and even currencies, they waver.
So where does gold come into this picture? Explain that to us. We know the government can keep printing dollars when they need to, but you can't print gold, obviously, assuming that's part of the reason.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned something very important. That's the challenge that the government's having now is they don't have the ability to just keep printing money because it's increasing our debt, which is $37 trillion, which is unsustainable. Why gold? Because it's outside of the system. There's nothing attached to it but the individual that owns it. And in today's world, it's no longer enough that something just holds value. It must also survive systems correcting, like our market, fiat money, which is our dollar, debt, collateral changes. They all depend on trust. We're losing that. We're losing leverage. This is when those are straining on our economy, and gold doesn't break, like you said. Central banks around the entire world are buying more gold than they ever have in the last 2 years, and that's why we're seeing record highs. But it all comes back to $37 trillion in debt, and we're adding to that every single 4 hours, billions. So this is what you're seeing, a safe haven asset, everybody going to it right now.
Shannon, I'm no financial expert. I always turn to experts. I do my homework, and we want our viewers to do the same. So tell us about resources that are out there to learn more about gold.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we've provided is many different guides that we've done our research. We've got a really robust research department. There's just things that people can do to educate themselves. That's what we provide here at American Alternative Assets. It starts with education first. We know the metals industry, hard, precious metals, physical metals, and that's what we educate people on. Everybody else can see what's going on in our markets, the uncertainties there.
How do people get the guide that you've put together?
Yeah, so they can go to connect4gold.com. They can call us. We provide a free consultation. That's at 888-414-GOLD. Ton of educational material for people to get educated before it's too late, before we see a major correction in our market again.
All right, Shannon, thanks so much once again. Here's where you can go for that guide, connect4gold.com, or call 888-414-GOLD. There's a lot more information than we were able to cover today, and it's free, so no excuses out there. Knowledge is power.
All right, guys, let's get back to our top story, and that is the Israel-Hamas peace deal. If all goes well this weekend, the 20 hostages being held by Hamas for the past 2 years who are still alive could be released by Monday or Tuesday, we're told. So, of course, that's not the end of their trauma. They're going to face a long road of physical and emotional recovery. And as we all know, emotional trauma affects us not only mentally, but it also can manifest physically. So Dr. Christian Gonzalez is the co-founder of the Integrative Psychology Institute, and he's going to join us now to talk about that emotional physical connection. So Dr. Gonzalez, thanks so much for being here. Explain how it is that our emotional trauma can manifest in the body.
Emotional trauma through the nervous system can be suppressed and held into the body. And that's really important for us to understand because when it's held in the body, it can create physical and mental health issues. And a lot of us don't know how to move through that trauma that is held in the body.
So how do you start that process? How do you sort of get rid of that trauma that you're holding on to?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? And that's the $1,000,000 question. The best that we can do right now is create a connection back with our body. When we work through trauma, there's so much value in talking about it, but there's more value in actually bringing your awareness to your body and actually feeling what is present there. So holding space, dropping into the body, and actually sensing when you're going through the process, what is active where. The body speaks to us and will begin to process on its own.
I imagine it could be even more difficult because you're not only talking about the emotional trauma, but also the fact that there has been extreme physical trauma as well from being kept in dark conditions, the lack of food, the lack of access to any medicine, and also the lack of movement.
Yeah, getting back to a physical healthy standard is most important. But once the body is back in out of survival mode into a mode where it's back into just basically a robust state of health, then we can go into the psychological piece. But yeah, the strain will be there, and it's just the beginning to go deep into the body and go through that emotional trauma. But it needs to be processed because downstream, we know through the research that it can manifest as different mental and physical health issues that can manifest 20 years from now, 30 years from now. So it's the utmost important to be able to process the trauma that is neck down, not head up.
That's so interesting, Dr. Gonzalez, because I mean, are you saying, I don't want to get too technical medically, but like the tissues hold stress and trauma? You know, that book called The Body Keeps the Score has been a bestseller now for years. It's always on the
Yeah.
bestseller list. So what is that process how does our body hold on to it?
Oh, I love that you even asked the question. This is amazing because the nervous system it's basically binary. Am I safe or am I not safe with
Mhm.
this certain person in this environment? And when it doesn't feel safe, it holds. So it doesn't allow us to express what is there, whether it's anger, fear, guilt, shame, sadness, whatever it is. And the nervous system will keep holding it until you feel safe enough. And that can go on for someone's whole lifetime. I've seen it happen. And that the nervous system is what dictates it. The mental, the nervous system, and then into the body, into the tissues, different parts of the body too. It depends on the person. It depends on the emotion.
You know, it sounds like, for some it can seem like this is really hard. I'm already going through a lot, and how long is this going to take? I mean, are there not easy fixes, but are there bite-sized pieces that can
Mhm.
happen right away and that people can do without spending too much time?
Yeah, absolutely. Learning how to breathe properly. When we're in a state of trauma or survival, our bellies are sucked in and we're breathing into our chest. So if I ask someone to take a deep breath and they're breathing with their shoulders up, that's indicative that their diaphragm's not moving and they're not in a state of calm and rest. And nothing processes without having a state of safety. So relaxing the belly and actually breathing into the belly brings that state of calm where the body begins to come online and starts to process. But really, really safety is needed, and someone can find a somatic practitioner near them to hold that space to guide them.
And when we talk about what's been going on in the Middle East, there are so many people who've been not just hostages, but the families of hostages who've been dealing with stress because of loved ones who are not with them. So many people need to think about what you're talking about and maybe try to find ways to, as families now work together to relieve some of the stress.
Mhm, mhm. Absolutely, 100%. It's not just the person, it's the caregivers, it's the people who've been worried, missing.
Yeah.
It's a whole systematic piece. It's a relational piece, and it's not just one person. So if we create that space where people can heal together, ironically, in community is the fastest way to heal. Not ironically too, because people help people and people hurt people.
That's right. Well,
That's such good advice, Dr. Christian Gonzalez. We really appreciate talking to you. I learned a lot about the kind of superhighway of the nervous system and how things can get embedded in your cells. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Could be a stressful time, guys, on the Great White Way. Talking about a possible double strike on Broadway coming up this fall. There are two separate unions whose contracts have expired. One is for the actors and the stage managers, and the other is for the musicians. Can't put on a show without those, right? Big sticking point is better healthcare coverage. And higher contributions by producers to pay towards those costs for the actors, as well as better wages for the musicians. Joining us now is our Broadway reporter, Lee Sheps, to break down what this all means, how it could impact people who want to go see a show. Lee?
Well, the number one thing that people keep asking me is, what should I do with my tickets? Should I go and keep my tickets? Should I exchange my tickets? Should I continue buying tickets? The answer is yes. There has not been an announcement on if there will be a strike or when there will be a strike. So I will say, continue to do what you're doing. As of this morning, 31 members of Congress have signed a bipartisan letter to send it in support of both unions, urging not to have a strike. Because think about it, in the pandemic, we had a Broadway shutdown for a year and a half, and that would be detrimental to the Broadway industry and the entire economy. And here's what they said in part of a statement in this letter: a disruption to Broadway will result in significant economic disruption to not just the New York metropolitan area, but harm theater workers and patrons across the country and around the world.
But Lee, what's the main reason for the musicians wanting to strike? The healthcare?
Well, healthcare, yes, and they want higher wages, noting that last year Broadway had its highest grossing record in history. You know, as the saying goes, the show must go on, but you cannot go on for these artists if they're not able to do their work. And in a statement, here's what the Musicians Union said: audiences deserve the magic of live Broadway, but the artists that make the magic happen must be paid fairly and must not have their jobs and benefits taken away from them.
I see humane scheduling on there. I mean, Broadway is a grind for the actors and for everybody else, everybody behind the scenes and the musicians.
They're doing 8 shows a week. Think about it. In terms of the actors, they're not just rolling out of bed and going to work like maybe most of America. You know, sometimes we roll out of bed if you're working from home too. They are putting in 300% of energy. And we have a graphic of what these actors are looking for, and I want to see if we can pull that up. They are looking for safe staffing, humane scheduling, better paid time off, sustainable working conditions, having producers paying fair share of benefits. These are things that everybody in America wants. They want better pay and better health care.
Yeah, the grind is physically very demanding for so many of these shows. You got to stay. It's not just appearing at the theater; it's what they have to do when they're not at the theater performing. You know, staying in shape and taking care of their bodies. What's the timing on this, Lee, in terms of when there could be a walkout, if there is one?
Well, the Musician Union is currently still in negotiations with the Broadway League, and that is the organization that represents the theater owners and the producers. So they will continue their discussions next week. But if you don't work as a musician, you don't get paid. And in terms of the Actors Equity Association, I sent them an email yesterday asking for updated information, and a rep responded to me that they have not yet set a date for when a strike would occur, if there is a strike. The last time there was an actor strike was in the 1960s. And in terms of the last strike on Broadway, well, that was in 2017. It was a stagehand strike, and that lasted 19 days.
Yeah, I remember that time as well. I mean, everybody's needed. It takes the whole village to make this happen.
Well, Broadway just bounced back from the COVID-19 shutdown. And the last thing anybody wants, the Broadway League and any union and anyone in New York City and around the country does not need Broadway to shut down again, because to work to build that up again with all those lost ticket sales, with all that lost work, would be a huge detriment to the economy.
People have been doing.
All right, so Lee, for anybody out there watching who wants to support the actors and musicians, is there a place they can go?
Oh, thank you so much, Allison. Yes, so far 8,000 people have pledged their support. There is a place you can go on Instagram, Equity United Official, and if you want to show your support too, you can go there, find a letter, and send and sign your name, and that will go to the Broadway League in support. So anybody can do that.
And again, if people have tickets they're holding on to, and it happens to coincide with the strike, do they get their money back? Do we know?
I assume so, yes, because if a show is canceled on Broadway for whatever reason, that's been the policy. They've been able to get their money back through the payment of which they bought the ticket, and then you can exchange it for another day.
You're just hoping that doesn't happen.
No, because I have a lot of tickets coming up.
Lee Sheps, thanks for being here.
So
Appreciate it.
Well, great to have all of you with us today. We are going to take a quick look at the question of the day one more time. What was it that we asked people? Oh, yeah. Does President Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? And we have 55% saying yes, 45% saying no. It's already been decided, though, this year.
Right. We know that it went to the Venezuelan opposition leader in this case. That was announced just this morning before we came on. And as we leave you, we take a look at this historic image of Palestinians making their way north back to Gaza City amid word of a ceasefire and hopes that there's a lasting peace in this region, as we expect the remaining hostages to be released coming up in the coming few days. Thanks for being here.
It's going to be a critical weekend. So we'll be looking forward to updating you on Monday.
Yeah, we expect President Trump will be traveling to the Middle East, maybe there as soon as Sunday. You can imagine the logistics involved with that kind of a trip and the security measures that have to be put in place. But he wants to be there, particularly as this deal is underway and the hostages presumably return home.
As soon as Monday, hopefully. Well, you can download the best of what we have to offer. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all of the other places that have podcasts. Thanks so much for being with us. Have a wonderful, wonderful, safe, happy, healthy weekend.
It's a long weekend.